Hello and welcome to another episode of On The Topic. I'm Alex.
I've got my tinfoil hat again. I'm Dan.
It looks great. And yeah, we've got, this week, listener, we've got a Volume 2 of Conspiracy Theories.
Our first ever Volume 2.
It's been a long time coming. I mean, do you remember, Dan, when we did Volume 1?
I want to say it was June, July last year, 2019. A simpler time, pre-COVID.
Right. Where we get together, not that we had our, licking each other's faces, but we were, around a mic, not socially distanced as we are now. But I can still gaze into your lovely eyes.
Yeah. This is a first. We're back in the same room together. It's weird. It's not that weird. It's good. It's weird because we haven't done it in 6-7 months. But since start of March.
It's good that we can be in the same room.
We're taking the precautions. We'll obviously put a photo on our socials, show you that we're not telling lies. We're here. We're staying safe.
Being sensible, being law-abiding citizens of the UK. But no, it's good to be behind the mic, literally, and to be back in the same room again.
Yeah.
Because look, we'll try our best to give you quality content, but there's only so much you can do over Microsoft Teams and the rest of it, and Zoom. So it's nice to be behind good old technology and have a decent mic. You just can't beat it.
Yeah, we're using a new bit of equipment. We've got these two snazzy little things.
They're lapel mics.
Mics. Beautiful.
And they're doing the job.
We sound more handsome and articulate.
It's a shame you don't look it in real life in the photos. But
no, I mean, I've got a bit of a bouffon going on. I need to get my hair cut again at the weekend.
Do you? Get in there before another lockdown.
Yeah. It's going to happen, isn't it?
Otherwise, your missus will have to start nipping your barnet again.
She does a good job, to be fair.
Oh, she does.
Grade 3 back and sides.
I do not knock...
6 on top.
Do not knock the missus for her efforts. She does a good job.
My hairdresser actually complimented her on her skills.
Good.
Good times. So I went back to the hairdressers for the first time back in, whenever they opened. It must have been August, actually, when I had my appointment. She said, Claire's done a great job on your hair. Like, it's easy for me to cut.
Compliments to the hairdresser.
Claire was well chuffed.
Highest regard. Well, so we're back in the room, and we're going to be doing a Volume 2. Say, Dan, it's our first Volume 2, because we've always threatened, I guess, to do follow-ups. And sure enough, the punters want it, and we want it, because quite frankly, I think it was a bananas first volume, wasn't it? When we covered things like...
Lizard people,
where Dan was doing this weird thing with his mouth. Yeah, he's doing it again. That's really uncomfortable. I'm not quite prepared for that. We had the Beatles. Yeah. We had... was it Avril Lavigne, that one as well?
Yeah, we had Avril Lavigne. I think there was... I can't remember what celebrity it was. I think we mentioned one of them was a clone.
Yeah, and we had the moon landings.
Yeah.
Oh, we had it all. And it's a really good episode. Actually, I had a really lot of fun. And it actually took us down a number of different rabbit holes, which ended up with the Mandela effect. Which was a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's another one we can sort of visit for Volume 2 at some stage. But we did them so close together, those two episodes, that I think by the end of it, my mind was just boggled, ridden.
It just question reality.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it again. And I've got, I think it's 4 or 5 different individual things that I want to tell you, Dan, and a listener today in terms of conspiracy theories. And I guess you've got something similar?
I've got 7.
All right, it's gone all in.
I mean, a couple of them are quite big, but the others are sort of relatively small.
Okay. But
this time around, I've sort of tried to find the hilarious stuff.
Not too deep.
One of them is QAnonymous.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we're going to sort of downplay that because it is just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's that ridiculous I just swore talking about it, and unfortunately one of my family members believes in it.
Okay.
So ridiculous, absolutely bonkers. Don't bother.
Get in the sea. But we're going to be talking about other stuff as well. And I mean, who wants to go first? Shall I cover off, or do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll let you start first.
Well, Dan, I'm going to go quite deep and dark. And I'm going to be talking about the topic of the Hadron Collider.
Oh, is this the thing that's in, is it Sweden? Or sort of around that area?
Close enough. The Hadron Collider has or will open the gates of hell.
All right. We've
already gone there.
We're already here, aren't we?
Out of the gates, and it's happened. So if you're not aware of what the Hadron Collider is, Dan, or the listener, it's originally built by the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, or you may know it as CERN. And we'll come to what that means in a minute. And that's between 1998 and 2008. Now, already this week, my work colleagues are making me feel old because they don't know a pre-DVD, CD era. I just find that really upsetting.
I saw this on your Instagram stories.
Yeah.
Was it what computer was it?
Well, I had the Amstrad, which is a tape-fed game,
and I had a Spectrum. But how have these kids not lived?
Well, they were born like after the millennium, which is really upsetting. So they wouldn't have been at the start of the construction of this piece. Anyway, so I remember when they were building it, and I actually remember people picketing and saying, you shouldn't be doing this, is against science and against religion. And the reason being is because they're looking to prove the God particle. Of course, those people who don't believe in the Big Bang, they believe in is it the divine creation, Adam and Eve and the rest of it. And they say you should be doing this anyway, and it's really, really dangerous, and you don't know what you'll end up doing. And sure enough, they don't. That's why it's called an experiment. You have a hypothesis, and you want to prove it or not. So anyway, it was quite controversial at the time. It was between 1998 and 2008, and it was built with the collaboration of over 10,000 scientists, so a small army, 100 universities and laboratories, as well as over 100 countries. So everyone was all in to kind of fund and back this. They still do, to be fair. Now, it lies in a tunnel 27 kilometres, so in our money, that's 17 miles, give or take, in circumference, so it's quite big, and as deep as 175 metres or 574 foot.
Whew. So
this ain't small. This is big time, and it's between the France and Switzerland border near Geneva. So
that's it.
Close enough. Now apparently it was first switched on when it was completed, as you'd expect, in 2008, to a large amount of conspiracy theories. The world over, and the reason being is because the underground facility does send particles around in a loop, and they go in opposite direction. Eventually they go so fast, thousands of miles an hour, that when they'll collide, there'll be a moment, an impact, which they hope will recreate the Big Bang.
Sounds a lot like the Death Star to me.
I guess, maybe. But people think it's a bad idea. And some theorists believe that actually that could cause a black hole to form and immediately swallow up the Earth. Now, I don't know the science behind that or whether there's any merit in two particles colliding and causing a black hole, but nonetheless, that's what they're concerned about. Now, whilst we don't think it's happened, theorists have said it did open up a different world of pain altogether, which is specifically hell, Dan. And apparently we're further fueled when and this is the thing that I can't get behind, is apparently there was an electrical storm, like a lightning storm,
in
and around the area, and someone caught a lightning strike striking the ground nearby back in 2016. So let's just get this into perspective. So 8 years after they first started the experiment, someone took a picture when they were out and about, and a lightning has struck the ground.
So this isn't Thor landing or anything like that. This is just a normal storm.
This is a bad storm, and someone said that was enough to illustrate that some bad misgivings are going. Look, fine.
I say Thor because you're talking about the God particle, lightning storms.
Well, it's interesting to say that actually. So some also believe that with this God particle, the search for the God particle, that actually they're looking to summon the big man with the bearded face himself,
the God,
or a God. So apparently the evidence, Dan, and this is where it really does stretch, and we find in these conspiracy theories, is they look for the smallest, tiniest detail. But apparently there's an open nod, a bit like the Illuminati. They're open, they're out in the open, hiding in plain sight. And apparently the evidence is that Shiva, or the destroyer, the God destroyer, is sat outside CERN in statue form, with 4 letters underneath it called CERN, CERN, which is the establishment. But apparently he's also coincidentally the first 4 letters of Cernunnos, or the horned god of the underworld. So apparently that's a nod to say CERN is to do with trying to fetch or to get in contact with this underworld god, this god of hell. Now CERN actually means the Council European pour la Recherche Nucléaire, or the European Council for Nuclear Research. Conspiracy theorists say, of course, that they're in the search to end the world and to reach out to the other world, and they're in the search to contact Hal. Now that one, there's an awful lot of far-fetching in that one, just for what I've read. There is still some legitimate concern about the amount of power that could be released from two molecules smashing together. Because if you split an atom, you can cause an awful lot of devastation. We've seen that in the world wars, and it's quite horrific. So what can you do with two smashing atoms? I don't know. It's a fair question, but anyway, nonetheless, that's what they say has happened. Now I will touch on CERN at the end, so we're going to go full circle for my conspiracy theories. But for the moment, that's my first one out the gates, Dan. That the Hadron Collider is used to contact the other world to what end? Why would you actively seek out hell?
Yeah.
And the god of hell or some kind of entity? It just seems a bit odd. Yeah,
we don't want to be contacting gods and devils and demons and.
Well, not really. They tend not to end up well in film. I'm not sure if you've ever seen a good film where someone does that and they end up in one piece. So part of me thinks get in the sea. But I can understand why there's some trepidation around the some of the unknown science. But hey, anything that seems magic is because we just don't have a grasp of it. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my first one, Dan. That one was a little bit troubling, but that's all about CERN and scientists. Those pesky scientists, Dan.
Well, this one was sent in by my namesake, and it's so funny that I had to delve a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Pigeons, the pesky little pigeons that bobble around every day.
The flying rats, as we call them in the UK.
Yeah, full of the country's full of them. They're not real.
Come again?
Pigeons aren't real.
So the things where cats chew them up and they bring them into your home, or foxes decapitate and leave them in the middle of the pavement, that's not what we're seeing. Isn't kind of like deceased flesh and blood. What are we seeing then, Dan?
Right,
enlighten me and the listener.
I'll give you a little bit of background, and this is probably the only time I think we're both touch on the COVID-19 conspiracy theory.
Okay,
this is probably the only time in this episode. Pigeons are working as biotech spies for the government, loaded with surveillance technology. The pigeons spy on the public, collecting your private data.
Oh, I knew it. They're all after my data.
The pigeon is the perfect covert drone.
And I don't disagree, because you wouldn't expect it, and there's lots of them.
I mean, if you want a bit of history on this stuff, so let's rewind to 1987.
Hang on, so this has been around for over 30 years?
Yeah, apparently so.
Okay.
So in 1987, Britain was reeling from dozens of IRA attacks in both Northern Ireland and mainland Britain. This is where Maggie Thatcher comes in, Alex. She vowed to do whatever it would take to end this carnage.
Some of the pigeons, she said.
Some of the pigeons. Oh, it gets crazier. So as violence continued, Thatcher confided her concerns in US President Ronald Reagan during a secret meeting in Washington DC.
Wasn't he indicted for being? I don't know my American presidents, but was he the crook?
I'm not
Reagan?
sure. I'm not really up with my US presidential history. But yeah, anyway, I mean, if this is as dodgy as it sounds, it probably could be him.
Okay.
To be fair, sensing the importance of this, the American leader divulged his own tactic for getting dirt on suspected communists, jihadi terrorists, anti-war protesters, and anyone else who were thought to threaten the US order.
Those pesky freedom fighters.
Exactly, you got it one. The answer was pigeons. But not real pigeons, of course, as I mentioned, the biotechnology surveillance drones, harnessing the power of pigeon designed by the government to look, walk and squawk like a real pigeon.
But they're what, animatronics or something, allegedly?
Yeah, I think I've put up a couple of diagrams on Instagram while we're trying to get some comments for this. And unfortunately, this was the only comment we got. And then I say it's so funny that I just had to pick this one up. So we go into 1990 now, in February. Thatcher's pigeon purge began. So she's starting to kill all the real pigeons to replace them with her biotechnological ones. Known among some as the catastrophe. Oh God, this is so bad. It heralded the mass takeover of city centre pigeons in mainland Britain. The purge in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland only began in 1998, thanks to the Good Friday Agreement. I don't know what that is, but it sounds ridiculous. By June 1990, entire pigeon populations were working as drones for the government.
So the Good Friday Agreement, I think, is the peace accords for the Troubles in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
So they're saying that was what, a guise to switch out pigeons, and
Apparently so.
Wow.
Yeah. Over time, as technology has improved, pigeon bots no longer need to be charged at replenishment centres. Due to the development of inductive charging, well, they just sit on the power lines and power grids with little...
That's why they're always sat on the power lines. I did wonder that. Surely it's quite uncomfortable and you've got a balance.
Yeah.
But they're just charging.
I mean, how's this for mind-blowing, right? When was the first time or the last time you saw a baby pigeon?
Surely it should be walking around, right?
You'd think. I mean, read into what you will. I think
there are no baby pigeons.
Say read into what you want, but I think it's complete nonsense. But
damn.
I mean, everyone's seen like dead pigeon stuff hit by trains on the railway lines. There's like it's a mess.
Yeah.
I
haven't seen no wires.
There's no wires or cameras or anything like that. Now there is a theory in some parts of the internet that the reason for the COVID lockdown was to upgrade or change the batteries of said spying pigeon drones.
It makes sense, Let's tank all the world economy and put people's lives at risk just to switch out the batteries on some pigeons.
Yeah, I mean, I've got they live next door but one to me, but I call them the crazy pigeon couple. Lovely, lovely couple, by the way. But they're out every day feeding these pigeons, and they've got bird seed out on the tree outside the house and stuff. And these pigeons are everywhere.
But perhaps they're in on it, Dan.
They could be.
And they're like sharing messages with the government.
Maybe it's not seeds they're feeding them. Maybe
it's your data.
My data and my secrets.
They're sharing your data with the pigeons back to the government.
So I replied to that. I said, this is really funny, yet I really feel uneasy about pigeons now. He said this: you can never be too sure. How much do you really know about the purpose of a pigeon?
That's a true question.
Yeah.
I've never really had much thought or consideration to the lowly pigeon, but now I'm going to be frowning and I'm going to be alert, as all good UK citizens should be at this current crisis. And I'm going to be alert, but not for the old coronavirus, but for pigeons, Dan.
Stealing your data.
For stealing my data.
And honestly, on that note, before Alex goes on to his next one, if anyone has seen a baby pigeon, please let us know. Yeah,
I'll send us a snap. We want to see it. We don't want one from Google. We actually want to see you take a picture of a baby pigeon and let us know.
We want a glorious selfie with you holding a baby pigeon.
But we don't want to imprint that he thinks that person's done its mother.
No.
Try and do your best.
And put it back in its nest.
Yeah, and
lovingly.
Yeah, make sure it's warm.
Yeah, tuck it in.
But wow, that's a whole level of crazy. I don't think we went on the last episode.
No, I would say we had lizard people cloned and moon landings. And this is just weird.
Perhaps bring it back a little bit less crazy, but crazy all the same. And if we go a little bit close to perhaps the lizard people, have you heard, Dan, of Hollow Earth?
Oh, do you know what? When I was looking for conspiracy theories for this episode, I think I did stumble across this one, but I didn't look too much into it.
For good reason, because absolute nonsense. But whilst flat earthers get an awful lot of attention in the media, and that's just a whole different topic probably in itself, Dan, and maybe we want to do cover flat earth. There are also some who believe that there's a whole civilization or civilizations of advanced beings living in the centre of our world.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. Now, if you've seen the appalling live-action adaptation of Artemis Fowl, then you probably know what this is, because it's basically the whole concept. I'm not spoiling for you, because actually they explain the first opening 2 minutes of the film.
It's on Disney Plus, isn't it? It didn't make the cinema because of COVID.
Well, no, because it's a shit film. It's really bad.
And it was never going to make the bank.
Never. Even though it's got Dame Judi Dench in, so she clearly thought it was onto something, and you can clearly see they're trying to make a series based on the books, but shit on a stick, it's terrible. It's really, really bad.
Is it worse than Fantastic Beasts and Where Not to Find Them 2?
It's actually on par with it.
Holy shit.
There's a character who digs and eats the ground, dirt, and then ejects it out of his backside.
Yeah, no one needs that.
The mind boggles. Now, obviously, I guess that was written in the book, and that's fine. That probably translates well on written form, but in film, I mean, crikey, it's a car crash. Anyway, the basis of that book and of the film, subsequently, obviously I haven't read the book, is that there is a world of fairies living in the centre of the earth, and they come out and sporadically, save the world. They're guardians. It's an interesting concept, but it's a poor execution of the film. That's basically what I'm saying. This is quite similar. So is the fairies, I guess, there's advanced civilizations with spaceships. And this is kind of where some people are saying that UFOs come from. Hence why you don't see them zap off into the sky. They go back into the centre of the earth, where they reside, because that's where the advanced civilizations who apparently don't need the fresh air and don't need our atmosphere and quite happy to see no natural light to live inside under our feet.
What do they eat? Molten lava? Because that's basically...
Well, this is interesting. So the theory actually goes back to the 17th century, Dan. When Edmund Halley, or the very same Halley's Comet, because they named it after him after he found it, proposed that the Earth must be hollow because of the changing magnetism observed on Earth. Now, in advance of that, a German scholar called Athanasius Kircher published a textbook back in 1664, no less, which claimed that the Earth contains a central fire and vast underground lakes and lava chambers. And he's partly right, because there is magma and super hot kind of stuff, the non-technical term, under the crust. But he proposed or theorised that there was some hollow stuff in the middle of the Earth. It so happens transpire they are lakes and lavas. Now, the central point of the Earth, just for those who perhaps want to err on the side of science, the central point of Earth is over 6,000 kilometres down. And even the outermost part of the core is nearly 3,000 kilometres below our feet. Now, the deepest hole, just to give you some idea, Dan, that's ever been created on the surface is called the Kola Super Deep Borehole. It's in Russia.
Okay.
And that only goes down to 12.3 kilometres, so nowhere close.
What about Mariana Trench? I mean, we've condemned a load of pop culture.
And an awful lot of ridiculous and stupidity is now resting at the depths of the Mariana Trench, but I don't think it's that far. You may want to fact check that.
I will have a look on that.
But Simon Redfern from the University of Cambridge says, we can estimate Earth's mass by observing the effect of the planet's gravity on objects at the surface. So good so far. It turns out that the mass of the Earth is 5.9, Dan, sextillion tons. That's 59 followed by 20 zeros.
Jeez.
So, in simple terms, the density of the material of the Earth's surface is much lower than the average density of the whole Earth. So that tells us that there's something much denser at the centre. Well, you can't have advanced civilization living in dense molten rock and lava, because where are they going to live? There's no open caverns or vast open spaces for them to reside in. The science doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it doesn't stop people theorising. And again, that's what I say, that's where people have perhaps put two and two together and made 17. And that's where they say that actually it is hollow. So getting to see about flat Earth, what you're talking about, is spherical. But no, the inside's hollow. There must be, because of all that surface area and space. And that's where UFOs or advanced civilizations reside.
Strange. Weird.
Odd.
Well,
Odd indeed.
I did have a quick look on the Mariana Trench. It is...
deeper than 12 point something kilometres?
I've got 2,550 kilometres in length and 69 kilometres in width. That's all I could find.
But not depth.
No.
Okay. Well, it's deep anyway, and so is the this borehole, and it doesn't even touch anywhere closer to the centre of the Earth.
Oh, I found the depth.
Oh yeah.
10,984 metres, which is the equivalent of 36,037 foot.
Okay.
So it's deep.
That's deep. And
so for the stuff we condemn to the ocean.
I know, right? And the weight of the water and gravity mean that actually you'd be subjected to insane levels of pressure at that depth. That's why I'm going deeper in the Mariana Trench, because you'd be squished. But also why you can't go into the centre of the Earth, because of gravity, because of science. But anyway, some people believe Hollow Earth, and that was an interesting one I came across, a silly one, tongue-in-cheek, not as dark as the fact that CERN is trying to open up the super hell. But nonetheless, I thought I'd share that one with you, Dan.
I mean, talking of the world, right? This one sort of boggles my mind a little bit. Let's talk about the weather. Have you got this one?
Well, we're British, right? So we love the weather.
Yeah.
We always comment on it. But no, I haven't got the weather on my topics.
Okay. Well, apparently, towers control the world's weather.
Specific towers?
Officially tasked with studying the upper atmosphere, there is a bionic forest of antennae in remote Alaska. I mean, I'll continue. It's a mind control network, an alien invasion defence system.
Okay, good. We need those.
And the source of both an electromagnetic pulse that destroyed the Space Shuttle Columbia in 2003 and whatever it was that caused all those mass animal deaths of the last decade.
What? That's a lot of destruction for someone who's just monitoring the weather.
Yeah, I mean, it's destroying space stations and it's killing animals en masse. Like, what the hell?
And what's the evidence for this? Have they said?
Well, mostly the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Programme, or let's just call it HAARP for short, that's HAARP, has been blamed for the weather because HAARP controls the weather from these antennae.
Bloody HAARP. I've been telling you for years, Dan.
Yeah. So here's some recent events that have happened over the years and what's sort of caused the interruptions it's caused, I guess is the best way to describe it. Hurricane Gustav. This prevented George W. Bush from appearing live at the Republican National Convention. Hurricane Katrina, staged to increase the cost of oil.
What, at the expense of people dying and running out of water and living in desolation? That's
apparently
okay.
So.
All right.
Catastrophic earthquakes in New Zealand. China's Sichuan province, which, funnily enough, I think that happened around the time I was travelling in Asia, and I just missed that. I'd gone from China to New Zealand, then down to Vietnam.
Was that an earthquake, was it?
Yeah, it was huge. I can't remember whereabouts in Sichuan province it was, but I'm sure it was near where I was staying when I was in China, moving around. Scary stuff. Chile, Iran, and Japan. And apparently this was all to distract the Americans from the current economic malaise. And also an earthquake in Haiti, so that the US could occupy it by coup. So you're telling me they caused an earthquake to take over Haiti?
Wow.
Nah, surely not. There's more. Apparently, all these American heat waves happened when Obama was president to push through the US Congress a global warming tax agenda.
Okay. But that's all for reducing carbon footprint, so that's a positive thing.
And then, of course, you got Hurricane Sandy, which was to ensure Obama was re-elected.
Huh.
So
it's used as a political tool, but ultimately is quite widely devastating and horrific what it can do.
I mean, talking of political tools, that's what my next one's about as well. But it's not antennae.
Political leaders.
Political leaders, no. It's more to cover up things. But I mean, it will get interesting, and I think it gets a little bit quirkier from here on.
Oh, okay. Well, that's oddly disturbing that someone's come up with that, but nonetheless, I've got something equally as disturbing, Dan. But this is more philosophical and might challenge your way of looking at life. So strap yourself in.
I'm ready.
I don't think you are, but we'll go anyway. Dan, if I told you we're living in a simulation, what do you say?
We're in The Sims. Are we a computer game?
Effectively, we're in the Matrix.
This house isn't going to catch fire in a minute, and we're going to catch fire, and we have to run into a pool and put ourselves out.
And then the steps will disappear because they've been taken away. Do you ever do that in Sims?
Yeah,
that's really sick,
isn't
it? Yeah. I don't think I ever saw it through. I think I put them in at the last minute.
Playing God.
It's not meant for the lesser man. No, we're not talking about that. No, back in 2003, Oxford University philosopher Nick Bostrom laid out a paper. Now, this is done recently, the rounds. It keeps on rearing its head in social media every couple of years. And he proposes that there's a potential reality concerning advanced civilizations. So this is looking at how I think there's a rate of development of the human race, and if you see the leaps and bounds we've gone through technologically, sociologically, and otherwise, it's a steep up curve. So if you think about cavemen, creating with fires, development of the wheel, looking at then the creation of society, of language, so on and so forth, it picks up speed quite quickly as you go through all the hundreds of years and centuries. And the real question remains is, what else is left for modern civilization? So he theorises it's all to do with the ability to be able to simulate reality. That's the pinnacle of modern civilization. You're not just happy with the status quo and what you can do. You've got to be able to create a meaningful and believable simulation which can fool people to think that they are not in an alternate reality, which is an interesting way of kind of setting the bar. But he says there's three different kind of theories. One is that civilizations usually go extinct before developing the capability of creating reality simulations. Makes sense, because we are stupid and we wage war, and there's famine and there's disease and everything else. So even before we get to that point, we'll end up killing ourselves off.
Savage.
Probably could happen. But we're never going to get to the point where we can do that anyway because we're stupid. Another option is advanced civilizations usually have no interest in creating reality simulations. And why would you? If you're that advanced, why would you create something that isn't real? You just live your best life and extend it. So he's not saying this, by the way, but logically, if you're advanced civilization, you'd live forever, and you would transfer your consciousness, and you would go and populate the stars. Why would you bother with something that's not real? Makes sense. Well, the third option is that we're almost certainly living inside a computer simulation. It's got to happen. Now, of this, they call it a trilemma. Good play of words there. There's a conclusion that there's a 50-50 chance, Dan, that right now we're living inside a computer simulation. 50-50 put it down to. This is a bona fide academic, right? So there's got to be something in it. There's a rationale is that there's more layers of reality, or the more layers of reality that you go through a simulation requires. So think about the Inception.
Yeah,
seen a film with Leonardo DiCaprio. He has different layers of the dream states. So if you use that kind of that principle, each layer you go down requires more computing power because it's more advanced. You've got to run a number of different processes on top of each other without getting too technical. So by example, if we created one ourselves, we probably aren't living in one because we have a command of our own reality. And also, technically speaking, it's too difficult to be able to build those layers in because you don't have the computing power. Then the only way you can prove this is either we find a glitch which shows this is happening. Something's not right. There's two cats walking one behind the other, like in the Matrix, or something happens and you're going, that's weird. Or we create our own in order for us to be sure, and then we eliminate one of those options. The other option is obviously then we kill ourselves before we even get the opportunity to be able to create a reality. But those are the options either before us. Either we prove that we're in a reality and we see something doesn't really make sense, or we create our own and therefore we know that we're not in a reality. But either way, those are the only two options.
That's just weird.
So on that basis, because we are still here, it's then 50-50. And because we haven't created it, we could be in it because we already have.
Well, my mind's blown. I don't really know what to say to any of this. It's just
uncomfortable, I think is the word I'd use, Dan.
Yeah.
And that's a man of science and philosophy.
So I'm just flicking myself, make sure I'm real.
I think you are. I can't touch you because of social distancing.
Oh yeah.
You look real.
Good.
But yeah, a bit disturbing.
Yeah.
But just like Inception, guys, don't try it. Don't jump off a building or do anything silly like that. Stay with us because we've got some really good audio content coming up in the coming weeks. We want you to stay with us. So yeah, don't take their word for it.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, Mr. Oxford University. But yeah, it's It's a little bit unsettling.
Why'd you make this stuff up? Anyway, talking of government tools, Britney Spears was used as a government cover-up.
I did wonder. She's been in the news recently for real sad reasons. Though, have you heard about Britney Spears?
No, I haven't.
Ever since she's basically been around on our kind of our radar, there's an interesting kind of quirk. We know it's a power of attorney over here in the UK, but in America it's a power of attorney, but there is less legal precedent to challenge. So if basically, I'm talking paraphrase here, but if a judge determines that you're incapable of looking after yourself and your finances,
someone looks after you.
Spot on.
I deal with a lot of, I don't really deal with the power of attorneys as such, but
it's that principle.
Setting up customer accounts, you always get that sort of information.
Yeah. But it's very difficult then to get that back in America.
Now
apparently Britney's been trying to get that back, but her father's always been in control of her finances. Ever since she had her meltdown, he's been looking after her interests. There's a big online petition to save Britney, #save Britney, and that's what it's all about, because she has suffered from mental health issues, sadly quite publicly, and she's trying to get some kind of control back of her life. She doesn't have any access to her estate. She's got to justify her expenses. It's just interesting that that kind of situation can happen. So anyway, save Britney, Dan.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you mentioned, she's had a rough few years, but some believe it was all orchestrated by the government.
Oh, so she wasn't having some mental health issues. This is all a ploy to say, hey, look over there. Don't look at what's going on.
This was not a toxic battle between public and private life. Her public meltdowns happened to line up with multiple Bush administration mishaps.
I did think they were quite uncannily close together. Because there was a lot, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've only got two that I can sort of really give examples of. These were the only two I could find. So 2004, just a week away from the United States versus Libya trial, and the Bush administration embarrassed to say, oops, I did it again. See what I did there? Nice. Standing next to Scooter, Britney married and quickly annulled the 55 hours later her childhood friend Jason Alexander. I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
2 years later, in 2006, outrage shifted from president to pop star when Britney was photographed driving with her baby boy on her lap. I do, again, something else I remember. And then next, Britney divorced her second husband, Kevin Federline. I think I've got that right. Federline.
Yep.
My bad. When Bush dumped Rumsfeld.
So she's taken the hit for Bush?
Yeah, pretty much. This is what they're trying to say.
Wow. Would you take a hit for Bojo?
No.
I mean, he's doing a pretty good job at cocking things up here in the UK. I don't know if you could really deflect from that, but that's what they're saying, right? There's all these kind of these failings by government, and she's deflecting and taking one for the team.
Well, there's more, Alex, I'm afraid. Britney then shaved her head and went on her umbrella rampage the Times was reporting Al-Qaeda regaining power of Afghanistan.
No way.
So another sort of meltdown that coincides with another major event. Now, of course, conspiracy theorists think there's more to it than coincidence, as there is a clip of Britney Spears endorsing Bush in Fahrenheit 9/11.
Okay. A great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah, I think I saw it in cinema. I mean, you can tell any kind of story, right? If you've got the right content and the good kind of creative mind, but it's compelling. Who's the guy who does it? He's a political observer, isn't he?
Yeah.
It basically, if you haven't seen it, it basically goes into a lot about the politics and some of the things leading up to the unfortunate events of 9/11 and some of the background behind it.
Michael
Moore, that's him. He's done a couple. I think he's done Bowling for Columbine as well, about the school shootings in America.
Yeah, I mean, talking of 9/11, actually, I've got one in my notes about The Simpsons.
Okay.
I think we were talking about this one over dinner, because The Simpsons predicted several things over the years.
Yeah, they've predicted Trump. They've predicted world events, but they've predicted...
in the show's season 9 premiere, The City of New York versus Homer Simpson, Lisa holds up an ad for a $9 trip to Manhattan that shows the 9 next to an image of the Twin Towers. How that translates into 9/11 prediction as opposed to simply a coincidence is unclear, but you have to admit it's unsettling.
Or circumstantial.
Yeah, exactly. The episode was pulled from syndication after the 9/11 attacks, but has since returned to rotation, which I can confirm because I've been binging The Simpsons on Disney+.
Have you seen that episode recently?
Yeah. Because Homer's car gets driven to New York by Barney.
Yes.
And then Homer's waiting for the guy to come to unlock the clamp on the wheel.
Yeah.
But he ends up drinking loads of kakalash. And then I think he cops, doesn't he? And he sort of drives home with this thing on his...
just
wrecks the car.
Yeah, churning around, still clamped.
Yeah. But that's just like a bit of a synopsis. It's a fun episode to watch, but obviously, like, when you look at the conspiracy theory, it's quite unsettling.
Yeah, it's quite dark. I mean, they apparently they even foretold the ending of Game of Thrones, Dan.
Really?
Yeah, so there's an episode where a dragon is basically burning down Springfield it must be one of the Halloween episodes, I guess. Apparently that's clearly they knew about how Daenerys would lose her mind and end up laying waste to King's Landing. And do you watch Game of Thrones? Have you seen it?
Yeah, well, we've talked about it, haven't we, on previous episodes, and we thought the last season was trash.
Oh, mate, I don't know what they're doing quite.
Oh, yeah, that was awful. Genuinely.
Weiss and Benioff, wasn't it, who did it? Money, Dan, that's what it was money, and I think we committed them to the Mariana Trench as well.
How's this for a conspiracy theory? Maybe the writers told George about the ending, and George was like, well, that's shite. I'm going to go tell the guys at The Simpsons.
Oh, wow.
And they can do an episode.
Maybe.
That's my conspiracy theory, anyway.
Why not? I'm stunned to silence, Dan. I think you might be onto something. We need to go onto the message boards and get the message out there.
Yeah, if anyone thinks that is ridiculous, please let me know.
Yeah, let us know. We don't just report on conspiracies and make them up ourselves, apparently. So I'm going to go to my last one, Dan, and this I mentioned about Full Circle. This is all about continuing CERN on the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah. And
specifically, Dan, this isn't about opening up the gates of hell or trying to contact the bid man from the other side. The world ended, Dan, in 2012.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
This doesn't exist. Or it does, but not the way you like to think. So, a theory is reared its head again in the form of Twitter user Nick Hornerton. So you can check this out and have a look. He's done a really good, I think it's about 20 or 30 page thread. Who cites that Stephen Hawking predicted that in the search for the God particle that I mentioned before for CERN, it could destroy our universe.
Right.
So quite intelligent bloke, Stephen Hawking, who sadly passed away, said that could happen. Now, apparently, the possibility of CERN creating a black hole and us being sucked into it, and we may not even be aware. And apparently, although he cites physicists, says that this is a possibility that a black hole could be created and we're sucked in and not know about it. He actually doesn't say which, and this is where I guess there's an immediate warning signs. You're saying generic things, but you can't actually pull on evidence. So you should take this with a significant amount of salt, or pinch of salt, I say. Now, apparently, there's a general consensus that things haven't felt right since 2012. Apparently, the Twitter sphere and the general internet think that since 2012 everything's gone to pot. I guess my question is, Dan, if you reflect on the last 8 years, notwithstanding this one's been pretty shit by all accounts, have things felt right since 2012 to you?
I mean, it does sometimes feel like your days go quite quick, right? Like years can just fly by, but it just feels like yesterday. But I just put that down to getting a bit older, and my life's a little bit busier than it was when I was a kid.
Sure.
As a kid, I was dicking around, playing computer games. You'd be on there for hours, skateboarding, telling fart jokes to your mates. But now I work 8:30 till 5 o'clock.
And you're still telling fart jokes to your mates, but you're in the office.
Yeah. My life's just busier, and not at the moment because of COVID, but yeah, your days do go a lot quicker just because life gets in the way.
It does. Well, apparently the world's been descending into chaos more and more as time goes faster and faster. There's more. The theory goes on to say that the collective consciousness, in the event of us being pulled into this black hole, is actually, Dan, transferred over to a parallel universe that was close to our own.
Okay, this isn't Marvel, this isn't the Avengers.
No, but you've heard about this before, which is almost identical. And he cites evidence of the Mandela effect, Dan, that we know and love, as illustrations of a past parallel world experience and how it transferred over.
I think I've seen this.
So, the Mandela effect for the uninitiated, if you haven't heard about it, pause here around the 45-ish minute mark. Go back to last summer, 2019, August, September. Have a listen to our Mandela effect. It's really, really good. I really enjoyed it, but again, it's quite a deep and confusing rabbit hole, but nonetheless there's some intriguing things in there. And then come and play again at 46 minutes in. Effectively, people have found evidence that there are differences in collective thought and consciousness. So we use the Bernstein Bears. There's a different spelling, or certain logos look differently, but people definitively know them when they were younger or back in time that they looked a different way. So either logos or monocles on Monopoly Men look different. Now apparently, something which I haven't seen before, that this particular guy, and again you do have to question the source, but he calls upon paintings and photos of people capturing fictitious representations of the Statue of Liberty. So I didn't come across this one in the Mandela effect when we researched it down. But apparently, if you Google this, you can find it. The Statue of Liberty in certain paintings, so someone sat by the riverside, obviously drawing and then painting this lovely French structure, because of course it was given to the US by the French. She's pointing a different direction entirely, so I think she's looking away from the city out to sea, I think, or the other way around, and that's simply not correct.
But who's to say the artist didn't just change it to make it look good?
Totally. Perhaps it just looked that way, which was, aesthetically pleasing, as opposed to the angle which you sat at and perhaps wasn't. Good
just
point.
Lovingly looking at Manhattan instead of New Jersey.
Yeah. Could be artistic license, I think we call it. But he goes on to say that actually there's some users on, I think, some certain message boards that apparently have said that they've actually climbed inside the statue at one point in time, not illegally but as part of a tour, and taken photos from inside the torch, so at the top of the torch where she's holding it. I don't know which arm it is, probably the left hand, I think, and the right hand's got a book. I don't really know. It is left hand, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe it's not. Either way, I'll show our US. I think it's her right, isn't it? Because they usually fly around her right, and she's got a right hand aloft.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with right. I'm gonna put all the money on right. Either way, there's pictures. I think you can go up there, and people taking pictures from inside that, looking out at the flames of the torch at the top of the stairwell. But apparently, there's a problem with that, Dan. Because apparently that has been closed. Does exist. But apparently it's been closed to the public due to apparently a widely unknown wartime German terrorist attack.
Oh.
And it's been closed to the public. So how did they possibly get those photos and how did they go up there? But also, why was it closed? Because apparently there was a terrorist attack by the Germans in Second World War, but no one can recount that. But that's the reason why it was closed.
Okay.
So it's all very odd. And again, this is why you should be scratching your head going, this is nonsense, surely someone should know reality. But there's some genuine conversation, there's some photos out on the internet. Again, you've got to be careful because people can doctor stuff, right?
Yeah.
People are very good. We do it on our socials to promote the episodes. You can very easily just play around with free open source paint shop stuff and the world's your oyster. But nonetheless, he cites that as examples. How could it possibly be if this is reality? And also, apparently, Dan, this is one in itself, the government can't time travel past 2012. So therein lies two different issues here. One, we're establishing the fact that the government can time travel, which is news to everyone, and also that they can't go past 2012 because they can't see a future past it, because of course the world as we knew ended. Now apparently, due to a government whistleblower known as Preston B. Nichols, who was part of a time travel experiments in the Montauk Air Force Base. So apparently he told all. He was like an Edward Snowden, but of the clandestine flavour, and he said that they have been experimenting with time travel, but they just can't go past 2012, Dan, because it doesn't simply exist. Some also believe we've developed as far as we can as society and a species, and we're stagnating in development. And other signs that things have come to an end. So we're no longer progressing at the speed of technology or advancements, and we've gone as far as we can, and that's why we no longer are in reality, because we've run out of intelligent things to build and to create. Either way, this ain't reality, and it stopped a good 8 years ago.
But it's 2020 and we're practically living in hell.
Who would create this worldwide scenario if they given a chance? So yeah, apparently, Dan, the world ended in 2012, and that's why it's all been so weird since.
I mean, it's elaborate, it's well thought, but
it's convoluted.
Don't see anything in it.
No, but that's my last one, and the one that I thought was, look, if you read it, the way it's done is actually quite compelling. But this is good reasons to why you shouldn't believe everything you read on the internet, because it's just absolute batshit. But yeah, it's out there, Dan. It's there for you to read.
I've got 3 more, and we'll get batshit when we sort of do the sandwich. So I'll start with something.
Do the sandwich.
A little, yeah.
I like the sandwich.
This one's a little bit strange.
Okay.
And then you've got the completely ridiculous, and then I'll finish off with something nice and light-hearted.
I like that sandwich.
Right, so let's start off with the Titanic didn't sink.
Oh. Is this because of an insurance claim?
Ah, so you know this one, right?
Yeah. I've heard this one.
Anyone
there could be something in it as well.
There could be something in it, because it's just this final bit. But this theory was popularised by Robin Gardner's 1998 book, The Titanic, the ship that never sank? ? Now it says that the Titanic's sister ship, the Olympic, that it was that boat that fell to the bottom of the Atlantic on April the 15th, 1912, not the Titanic, and it was part of an insurance scam, as you mentioned, Alex.
Yeah.
Now go with me here. Trouble began when the Olympic, which was virtually identical to the Titanic, crashed into the Royal Navy warship HMS Hawke in 1911, and White Star Line, owner of the two ships, was found to be at fault for the collision. Now, bear this name in mind. White Star Line was owned by J.P. Morgan, so just bear with me and remember that name. So you know what this means, right? You've lost some money.
A ton of the stuff.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of bank to be lost there. Now, the theory goes that to make up for the financial hit, White Star Line patched up its damaged goods, sent the vessel out disguised as the Titanic, and orchestrated its sinking for an insurance payout that would more than make up for its previous money drain, especially since the real Titanic, a shiny new ship, would be up and running in the aftermath.
Wow.
But this is where the conspiracy theory lies, Alex. Now consider this in the meantime. Let's go back to J.P. Morgan. He was supposed to board the Titanic for its maiden voyage, but conveniently he cancelled those plans.
Because he knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting theory. I don't quite know the evidence and the switching, and I'm sure if you've written a book on it, there's other kind of compelling stuff, but that's just bleak.
Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of the film, but even reading about it to know that it's quite. I mean, I think it's like 60 odd survivors. I think last something of a good couple of thousand people. It was horrific. And interesting enough, recent documentary said, I don't know if anyone's interested in this, that they think that actually it was a fire in the furnace that had been going for weeks before, had weakened the infrastructure of the ship. So when it did crash into an iceberg, it wasn't the impact because the ship should have it was so reinforced it should have been able to take the brunt, but because there was a fire ongoing in the furnace that they weren't aware of, had weakened the infrastructure, that was enough to cause a fracture and then the subsequent flooding. And apparently there's evidence for that. So yeah, there's interesting stuff that comes to light, but is it an insurance scam? That's I mean also I think there's a Chinese company that's making a Titanic 2. So they're actually, with modern standards, they're actually building another super luxury ocean liner with the name Titanic. I mean, I don't know about you, Dan, but would you ever get on that boat called the Titanic 2?
No.
I think you're tempting fate there. So, that's interesting stuff.
I believe in tempting fate as well. I mean, not to get on the boat. I'll tell this story. Seth MacFarlane, who writes Family Guy, voice of Peter Griffin, Stu Griffin, etc., etc. He was supposed to be on one of the planes that got hijacked in 9/11, and
wasn't the one the Pentagon one he was supposed to be on, or was it?
Yeah, that's it. It was one of those planes, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't get on that plane, so I do believe that. I think you do tempt fate sometimes, and actually something can sort of pull you back away and get drawn into something else. But hey,
but don't get on the Titanic 2.
No. Now let's go to the batshit crazy.
Okay.
Let's talk about QAnonymous.
Oh.
I mean, you've sort of looked into this and we were like, well, we're not really sure if we're going to talk about this. But I think we have to, because it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to talk about the some of the absolute insane and crazy bits, because giving it airtime, I think, would just be an injustice to freedom of thought and the rest of it. But yeah, there's some nutty stuff anyway around this whole kind of. It's not an organisation, is it? Because it's like a faceless entity. It is a conspiracy theory that doesn't really have any kind of grounding on anything, does it?
No, not at all.
It's really odd.
So it's a far right conspiracy theory, and it alleges that a cabal of Satan worshipping paedophiles is running a global child sex trafficking ring and plotting against US President Donald Trump.
Do you know what? They're the worst type of people, though. If you could think of the scum of the earth, they've probably just written that.
Yeah.
So what's the worst person that could possibly be up against President Trump, or someone who is that kind of person?
It's bonkers, and obviously I've sort of had to sort of delve in to sort of find the stuff that is factless. There's nothing here with any substance that makes this real. I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you believe in QAnonymous, get in the sea. But I will carry on.
Yeah.
For anyone that is unfamiliar with QAnonymous, because I know I was talking to your wife earlier before we started recording, and she had no idea.
Good. That's a good thing.
But she found some of the stuff I was telling her just absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. So
she knows it's bonkers, right? So the theory also commonly asserts that Trump is planning a day of reckoning known as the Storm. Now, this was supposed to happen 3 years ago, and it still hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, isn't he supposed to be the saviour of the Western world? Isn't that basically the way he's been set up?
Yeah, I'll get to that bit in a minute. So thousands of members of the cabal will be arrested. No part of the theory is based on fact. Although preceded by similar viral conspiracy theories such as Pizzagate, I mean, that's another conspiracy theory that you can be led down a rabbit hole. The theory began in October 2017, and it was a post on anonymous image board 4chan by someone called Q, who presumably is just a single American individual. So he's gone out of his way to make up some sort of elaborate lie, and it's blown up.
Which in itself is a bit concerning.
Yeah. Q claimed to be a high-level government official with Q clearance who has access to classified information involving the Trump administration and its opponents in the US.
Huh.
Now, NBC News reported that 3 people took the original Q post and spread it across multiple media platforms to build an internet following. Now, we know how dangerous the internet is.
It can be a wildfire, and you just need a couple of people to back it, and it can spiral, and it could be like Chinese whispers.
Exactly. It'll just keep changing and evolving. And I'm sure we've sort of mentioned that before in previous episodes. Urban Legends, our first episode
massively.
On the topic.
Yeah, Urban Legends is a really good example there, Dan, actually, where people can hear something and it just takes on life of its own. Sure.
It gets deeper. Q has accused many liberal Hollywood actors, Democratic politicians and high-ranking officials of being members of the cabal. So what they're trying to say is there's multiple actors and actresses out there that are paedophiles, which just seems ridiculous.
Yeah, and this is quite politically motivated or politically charged. It's just an odd one. But I've read recently that this has actually picked up quite a lot of following in the last probably 18 months. In reality, picked up speed, but it's also made quite an impact in the UK in the last 6 or 9 months, which is really odd because we don't really have that much of a say or really any kind of interest in American politics. So why is making such an impact over here? Maybe people want escapism. I don't know, but it's odd that we are listening to that kind of stuff over here in the UK.
But someone's actually told me recently that, with coronavirus sort of wreaking havoc across the world, and we've all been stuck indoors on lockdown stuff, we've probably started watching things that we wouldn't necessarily watch.
That's a good point, yeah. So we'll be exposed to stuff that perhaps we wouldn't usually have the time or be exposed to.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Q also claimed that Trump feigned conspiracy with Russians to enlist Robert Mueller to join him in exposing the sex trafficking ring and preventing a counter-coup by Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton and George Soros. Now, this is why it's all completely bullshit, ridiculous, bonkers and just a load of nonsense. We have a series of failed predictions.
Okay.
The storm that I mentioned earlier was supposed to take place on November the 3rd. The
positive reckoning by Donald Trump, who looks like he has a difficult time trying to string together some sentences at the best of times, let alone trying to unearth a cabal of paedophiles in America.
It was supposed to take place on November the 3rd, 2017. There were no notable events in the US politics on that day. People targeted by the president would commit suicide en masse on February the 10th, 2018.
That's dark.
Guess what, Alex?
Didn't happen?
No prominent people committed suicide that day.
Or that we know of, Dan. Maybe they were replaced by their doppelgangers.
Now we're creating our own conspiracy theories.
There you go.
This is why it gets...
It's so easy.
Yeah.
But it is so easy.
Multiple failed predictions that Mark Zuckerberg would leave Facebook and flee the United States. Well, we all know that Zuckerberg still remains as the CEO.
And if anything, he's been pulled up in front of Senate to explain, there's just the insane amount of control he has on public data and knowledge. So if anything, he's under the heat because he's got access. He's still there.
Well, he let Cambridge Analytica into Facebook, didn't he? Tosser. They got my data because I was being fed Trump and pro-Brexit stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, just how important your data is and who has access to it and what... Yeah. Maybe it could be another topic we can do, just the power of data.
Same with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey. It's been told that he would be forced to resign multiple times. He's still CEO of Twitter. And now I'm going to round this off with some false claims, which just are even more hilarious.
Okay.
The CIA installed North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as a puppet rule.
No chance.
No, he's too bonkers for that.
Well, also, they're so anti-Western civilization. I mean, Kim Jong-un?
Yep.
The son, right?
Yeah.
Was the father? I think I've got it the other way around.
I can't remember.
The incumbent, he had a Western education, and he came back, and that's why he's so in tune with how the world will perceive North Korea and some of those behaviours behind it, because he grew up and was taught kind of Western culture and Western education. So why would he then be a puppet for the CIA? It's just strange. But maybe that's the perfect explanation, and that we wouldn't look there because it's so preposterous. It must be true.
Exactly.
Maybe, Dan.
On the 1st of March 2018, apparent suggestion that German Chancellor Angela Merkel is Adolf Hitler's granddaughter.
Oh, wow.
Which is impossible, because I don't think Hitler had kids.
I think she'd be older than that.
Yeah.
Granddaughter, perhaps not. I bet she's chuffed though to have that floating around. Imagine that, you carving yourself out quite a sizable kind of part of German history, and then someone throws that at you.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. That's helpful.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Obama, Hillary Clinton, and George Soros and others are planning a coup against Trump and are involved in an international child sex trafficking ring. And lastly, that certain Hollywood stars are paedophiles and that the Rothschild family leads a satanic cult.
Yeah, we talked about the Rothschilds, didn't we, in the last conspiracy theories?
Yeah.
They basically run the world, or at least America. But yeah, it's just scary, just how something can. I mean, that's a mix of a number of different conspiracy theories, but how that just has grown in popularity. I mean, that wasn't even a thing in my vocabulary like 6 months ago, but seemingly we know now about it and we're talking about it on the podcast. It's nuts. I think you're right, Danny. I think because people have had time and they're perhaps looking at things that perhaps they wouldn't have seen and would have discarded quite readily, then maybe that's why it's picked up. But either way, it's just worrying just how it's taken a foot in.
It's strange because I don't ever remember seeing this or picking up when we did Volume 1.
No, it wasn't a thing.
And I mean, even if it did appear, I've probably just brushed it off like, yeah.
It would be on the peripherals, right? It would have been very niche, but it's front and centre, isn't it, in terms of conspiracy theories, which in itself is quite disturbing.
Well, let's round this off on a lighter note.
Oh, yeah.
Really hilarious. Completely stupid. I mean, I don't think either of us are really One Direction fans.
I like a bit of Harry Styles' new stuff.
Okay, so his new sort of
I think
artistic...
he's quite... I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think he writes his own music, but I think he is quite talented. Give the bloke his due. He's doing very well in America. But yeah, I wasn't a 1D fan, though.
Good actor as well, apparently.
So, I haven't seen... Is it 1914, is it?
Oh, he was in Dunkirk, wasn't he?
Oh, Dunkirk, was it? Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet either.
But apparently he's quite good.
Yeah.
Like, so good, in fact, that you wouldn't notice him.
Oh. Well, anyway, this does involve Harry Styles.
Good old Harry.
But it's more based around Louis Tomlinson.
Oh.
His baby's fake.
Oh.
Yeah. So, just to give you a bit of a background. Back in January 2016, Louis had a baby with a woman named Brianna Jungwirth. News that she was expecting had come as a bit of a shock to fans in 2015, because, I mean, we knew how batshit crazy these One Directioners were, right? Yeah,
they're diehard fans.
I mean, you get them on Twitter and they're like, cut for Bieber. No, don't cut yourself for Bieber, he's a twat. So the tinfoil hats got to work as soon as reports of her pregnancy came out and started speculating that Brianna's relationship with Louis was fake and the baby was created by One Direction management to quell Larry Stylinson rumours.
So Simon Cowell created the baby, is what they're saying.
Pretty much.
Because One Direction was owned by Psycho, which is Simon Cowell's record label.
Indeed.
So this is all Simon Cowell then, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to shed a bit of light on this conspiracy theory, it involves a conspiracy theory in itself. According to believers, Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson, aka Larry Stylinson, have been in a romantic relationship for many years, kept secret by One Direction's management, so as not to upset the fantasy that guys of One Direction are all heterosexual men any women or woman could date in real life.
And part of that could be true. I'm not talking about the fake baby. Part of it could be true as much as people, I think, in recent years have been more comfortable about coming out and being not honest, forthcoming in terms of their sexuality and, you know, how they identify. Money talks. So there could be some kind of rationale behind it, but alright, so what?
Yeah, exactly.
It's 2020, right? The world is literally in a shit tip. Who really cares?
I think the only sort of sport that I've seen that really sort of suffers from this sort of behaviour is football. You know, a lot of footballers don't generally come out as gay until they've retired, which is sad. Well,
even some rugby players have struggled. They're starting to make entry, but I don't know what it's like for the music world. But yeah, I can probably Doesn't matter. Does it actually matter?
Who cares?
If they did before, fine. Doesn't matter.
Different generation now.
Yeah, 100%. But I could understand perhaps the commercial concern behind it, but to say that a baby was engineered to cover up, I think it's just absolute insanity.
It does get a bit insane. So after Freddie's birth, baby truthers suggested that the baby was either a doll or an infant belonging to a publicist for One Direction's label. That paparazzi photos of Louis and Brianna carrying the baby's car seat was staged, and that most Instagrams of Freddie had been photoshopped in some way.
Well, do you know what? There's probably some truth in both of those, because photos do bring in bank, and so they probably did have a staged, situation. Say, oh look, introduce my child in a car seat. That probably did happen, and guess what? They probably did Photoshop some photos on Instagram, because most people, who have that kind of access do. So yeah, probably.
One person that was really good at manipulating the media for money was Jade Goody.
Oh right, yeah.
Jade Goody. She would often sort of set up something for her photographer to take pictures to sell to the newspaper, so she could get some bank. It's clever, but it's possible. And she did it, and she did it really well. And
that's not a new concept, but to say that poor Freddie is a stand-in or a toy, I think is poor Freddie. He's going to grow up and think, I'm real. I'm not plastic. What are you talking about?
Well, it will come as no surprise that both Louis and Brianna have publicly expressed their disdain for this investigation.
Shock.
But that rounds it up for my conspiracy theories for another volume.
This has been absolutely bonkers, Dan.
It's been ridiculous,
hasn't it? And there's still loads out there. We're now clocking up just over the hour. That's nearly 2.5 hours worth of conspiracy theories we've covered off in this podcast channel so far, and we've even scratched the surface. Absolutely nuts.
There's so much weird stuff out there, and I think we should probably revisit the Mandela effects for a volume 2.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know when. That's already bent my mind enough.
I know, right? If you're coming to terms with what we just said and you're struggling to compute it, we'll join the club. But if we've missed anything, or perhaps you've got a question for us, let us know. Use our socials, the best way to get in contact with us, I think we say, Dan. So we're on all social media. We will post it around the time of this dropping, or you can contact us and ask us a question or a comment.
Yeah, so if you want to find us, we are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram on the topic pod. And of course we've got Gmail, which is onthetopicpodcast@gmail.com. Or alternatively, like our spooky Halloween episode, which is coming up next week, you can send us a voice message. How can they do that, Alex? Yeah, so that's on the URL link at the bottom. All you've got to do is click on the link in the description or on our social media. We do voice message Mondays, so look out for those. All you've got to do is click on the link, accept the use of the microphone, and it's a countdown, and you leave a message. And then what we can do is, much like as Dan said in previous episodes before, you can be part of the show. And please do, because it's really good and really good, great fun, and we have a great time reading your listener mail and your comments. So please do keep it up. We really do enjoy it, and I guess that's the main motivation for doing the podcast, right, Dan? We've got a couple of comments for Marvel Phase 4 as well.
We have
what
coming up.
They're expecting next.
Yeah, good.
So that should be fun to do.
Yeah, so get in contact. Let us know if you've got anything that you want to kind of ask or comment on for the future of Marvel during the current COVID pandemic, or any other topics that you want us to cover off. We've got the contact details, so please do let us know, and we'll take it on board and we'll schedule those in for the future. Yeah, I think we need to start lining up some new content, Alex. We do. Exciting. We've got a whole list of stuff to get through. We've got a back catalogue, but we're always happy to re-review it based on your recommendations, so please do get in touch. But for another week, Dan, my tinfoil hat is feeling a little bit uneasy. I think I need to take it off now. It's been far too long on my head. I think I need to go and have a long lay down. I've been Alex. I'm going back to 2012 because I'm pretty sure that's when the world ended. How so? Going to try and find a time machine, a DeLorean or something. I've been Dan. And, well, perhaps we'll see you next week. If we're not in another dimension or... being followed by pigeons. Yeah, could happen.